Hello and welcome to another Guest Top 10. I am Alex O'Neill, your resident guest wrangler, top tenor, 10 listers, person who can count to 10. And joining me today, special guest Cassidee Moser.
Happy New Year,
happy,
happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. I don't.
happy, joyous 2017.
It's a year. We know that. I don't know how you're still alive, dude. I saw the other day, like, what you recorded, like 24 of these or something.
Yeah, this is the 25th one, so
You're a nutcase.
I know I'm a little crazy.
Mad respect.
But I think this was like a good group of people this year. A lot of different people, different walks of life. So I think the games reflect that, and it was a good time so far.
Nice.
And I only have two left after this one, so
Okay,
I could
that's
see
not so bad.
I could see like the end approaching, and then maybe like sleep at some point after that. But we're here to talk about video games. For people who don't know, Cassie, where are you from on the internets?
You can find me in a couple places. Most of my work is done for IGN and Shack News right now. Yeah, I've bounced around a couple different on GameSpot, on Games Radar, all that. If I keep going, it's going to get too braggy, and I don't want to do that. But
Freelancer extraordinaire. If
I just basically go where people pay me.
Yeah, I mean that's the dream, right? Just
It's
you show me the money, I'll come here and do some work.
I'm not complaining too much.
Yeah. Well, you've also been on IP this year as well.
Best episode, right?
Which is the best. I think it's the best episode. So
We voted it episode of the year.
yeah,
Cool.
it was number one episode of the year. So people can go check that out as well. I'm trying to think of anything else to cover. We can cover some other stuff at the end. But let's get right into video games. 2016 video games. Honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions. So I have a few.
Okay.
First one I'm going to throw out there is Monster Hunter Generations.
Okay.
Monster Hunter games are really weird for me because I'm not big into like the obtuse, complex rule set type games where you have to go and scour forums to figure out how the hell anything works. But Monster Hunter, for some reason, is my one exception to that rule, and I think it's because it's kind of mindless in the sense that I can just play that game while I'm watching a movie or something, and not have to feel like I'm too engrossed in something.
Yeah.
The nice thing about Monster Hunter Generations too is it's actually really friendly to people who aren't necessarily super well versed in that world. Which it's my second Monster Hunter game, so that's me. Yeah, so that's one of mine.
I just hear the Mon Huns and I run away screaming. So
That's understandable. I don't even know honestly what got me into it. I think I was just looking for a 3DS game, and I was like, "Yeah, this is all right."
all right. I mean, it's Fire Emblem or Pokemon, but this seems all right.
Yeah.
This one's good. What other honorable mentions?
I'm trying to think of what I gotta pull up my top 10 list and get it in front of me. It's funny because like I've been kind of catching up on some games too.
I think they might be worth honorable mentions, depending.
Well, I don't know if Assassin's Creed Syndicate counts, but that game's pretty all right.
All right, I'll take that.
Okay.
I want to play that game, but I just haven't gotten to it.
It's pretty all right. Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of the other ones that maybe came out this year that I haven't put on my list. It's hard for me. Like a year goes by and you sort of look back and you're like, "Oh shit, I forgot that came out this year."
Yeah, The Witness came out this year. What?
I never played The Witness.
It's all right. That game makes my head hurt. So
I didn't have much interest in it, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, if you want, we can just jump into my top 10s, and then if there's some that pop up, I'll just throw them at
we'll just throw them out there. All right, we'll start with number 10 then.
Number 10. So I don't have these ordered specifically, so Mike give
in no particular order then.
So give me a second. Well, I can number them. It'll just kind of be in my head as we go here.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. Number 10 is one of my favorite games, but I don't think it counts for this year, so I'm just going to put it at number 10 anyway.
Okay.
Tomb Raider.
Okay.
Rise of the Tomb Raider.
It counts this year.
It counts because it came out on PS4.
Yeah.
That's
and PC. Came out on PC in January.
That's true. That's true. The platforms that matter.
Yeah.
No, Rise of the Tomb Raider is excellent. It just takes everything I loved about the original Tomb Raider, which is one of my favorite games, and just expanded on it, and it looks amazing, and it plays really nicely, and the story's not half bad. It's better than the first time around. Yeah, I just super love that game. It's a lot of fun, and they actually put a little bit more environmental stuff into it before, not this time than they did before, which is cool because that's what I always liked about the classic games too.
Yeah, Rise of the Tomb Raider is really cool because to me, and for like all intents and purposes, that game is like a Metroidvania. And seeing that applied to one of those kinds of games, like a exploration tomb raiding kind of game, is really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it works for that format really well. I am really excited for them to keep making those Tomb Raider games.
Yeah, I can't get enough of them. I like most Tomb Raider games, like even the problematic ones. And so seeing them kind of keep this thing alive makes me really, really happy.
The reboot was my first ever Tomb Raider game, and I loved it, so I'm on board. So
I kind of wish they would go back and release some of the old ones in a collection or something.
yeah, I mean they did that at some point on PS3, I feel, but
yeah, they might have. I don't know. I played them all on PC like a long time ago.
Yeah,
on the original Xbox, but yeah,
I would give them a shot at this point. I'm more interested at the very least. Number 9.
Number 9 is Titanfall 2.
Yes, that's a video game.
It is a video game. Titanfall 2 is not necessarily the best video game, but it is a pretty solid game. I liked it because, I mean, at least in my opinion, it is what the first Titanfall should have been in every way. Like, it has a decent story player campaign. That's not a phrase. Single player campaign with a story that isn't great, but it has some interesting ideas and it does some neat things. I do wish it wasn't quite so patchwork because it feels very much like, oh, here's a million ideas and we're just going to spread them out over a bunch of levels, which but it works for the most part, and it feels really good to play, and it's fun, and they nail first-person platforming in a way that so few games have ever been able to do. And the multiplayer wasn't bad either. I admittedly, it did not stick with me as long as some of the others on this list, but I still enjoyed it for what I played. It's a lot of fun. I think they did a good job adding in new classes and making things a little bit more different than they have been in the past. The thing that makes me sad is that it sort of released in a year where shooters kind of went above and beyond, so it kind of got drowned out.
Yeah, I mean, surrounded by like Call of Duty and Battlefield as well, and ones that were different and arguably better than a lot of the previous iterations it's a tough sell.
Yeah, for sure.
Game's still great though, and if you haven't played it, I still think people should play it because that campaign is real good.
It's so like I love the movie Pacific Rim, and like that's a pretty divisive movie, and like I kind of recognize that it's
people
bad.
that don't like that movie.
There are people that don't like that movie, and you know what? I will agree. Like it's not the best movie. Like it's got some really, really glaring, awful, bad parts, but it is so much fun.
It's real enjoyable though.
Yeah, and that's kind of what Titanfall 2 is to me. Like, the story itself is really pretty dull. Like, the most interesting character in that whole story is the robot.
He is a very sassy robot, though.
He is, and I adore that. But, like, the main character is just, like, the most bland dude. Like,
Jack Cooper?
Sure.
I think that's his name.
I think I've met at least 6 Jack Coopers in my life.
Yeah.
Like, it's just sort of,
Yeah, he's pretty boring, but...
You know, that is the perfect game, like, for when it goes on sale and you pick it up for, like, $20. Like, that's really good for that, I think.
Yeah, it's good. I loved it quite a bit. I know it didn't exactly hit with everyone, but that campaign definitely worked for me. So, number 8.
Number 8 is Mother Russia Bleeds.
You came on our show and talked about this game.
I did come on your show and talk about this game. This game's fun. I'm not a huge brawler person, but the thing about Mother Russia Bleeds is that it has such a personality to it that I just adore. It's disgusting. Like it is a like just visually and viscerally disgusting game. Like there's just it's like grimy. It's like covered in like a layer of grime and blood and sweat, and it's just disgusting, but I kind of love it for that because it takes it and just owns it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of drugs in that game too.
So many drugs. Oh, so many drugs. But the drug is kind of it's kind of fun, and they use it in a way that I think actually kind of helps bolster how gross that game is, because in order to get the drugs you need, you have to go and pull them out of people's bodies using a
Yeah.
syringe, and it's disgusting. And like the animations for it are so gross, and like your characters like gritting their teeth, and like it's nasty, but it works so well, and it's a lot of fun to play, and there's a lot of different enemy types, and I do think that the combat itself is fairly limited and gets a little repetitive after a long stretch of time. But like for Extra Life, I sat and played that with one of the guys that I work with at Shack News, and it was so fun. Like we sat and played that game for a solid hour and a half, 2 hours, like just going 2 player, like fighting all these Russian dudes in a bunker, and it's gross and it's hilarious, and it just is so self-aware in a way that I absolutely love.
Yeah. That game definitely, like, when you look at it, it has a lot of style.
Mm-hmm.
It has a personality that definitely shines. So
I love everything about the way it looks. Like I'm not huge on pixel stuff, but they do something different with it, where every character has their own unique animations, and they're very indicative of like this person is clearly not right in the head.
yeah,
It just sells everything so nicely.
yeah. That's a even from a distance. Like I have not played that game. It seems all right. Like I can respect it.
I think that game's probably going to come out for like a PS Plus thing at some point, and if it does, it's totally worth it.
yeah, I can get behind that. Number 7.
So this is a game I admittedly would like to spend more time with, but the time that I did spend, I really liked. Stardew Valley.
Okay, I'm playing this one too. So
Yeah, Stardew Valley is kind of outside of the norm for me. It's not a game that I would normally be pulled toward, but it hit at a time when I think it really resonated with me because it's so chill. Like, Stardew Valley is your friend that reads too many quotes from Rumi and does too much yoga, but they're like super chill, and they're just like, yeah, whatever, man. You know, like all is the universe wills it. Like that's how that game strikes me, because it's just like, you wake up, do what you want to today. You want to plant some crops? That's cool. You want to pet a dog? You want to go meet people in the town? All right, and I like that, because I feel like with games we're so programmed to expect objectives and drives and motives, and with this it's like, you just do you, man. Like, it's one of those, and I think it's really good for that. It also is, just a solid game. It has a lot of systems that intertwine very nicely. It has a really chill soundtrack that I really like, and I kind of like how weirdly anti-corporate that game is.
it very yeah, it
Like that,
really is.
yeah, that game is like, it's weirdly like, hey millennials, where it's like, fuck corporate culture, like we're gonna leave that and we're just gonna go move to a farm, and it's like, I kind of like that just because it's so innocent in
Yeah.
that way. Yeah, Stardew Valley is just sort of it's a very friendly game, and I like it for that.
Yeah, it's jolly in a way that like few things are. Yeah, we actually had a game of the year category this year, which was the best game to sit down and play and drink hot cocoa to, which is to say the most chill game.
100%.
Stardew Valley, absolutely on that list.
100%.
It's really cool. I'm not normally into those kinds of games either, and I've put like 35 hours into it. So
Yeah, I want to play more of it. I think I might pick it up on PS4 actually.
yeah, that's where I did like the first season on PC, and then I bought it again on PS4, and then just went from there. Like replayed through it and went from there.
Nice.
It's really good.
It is.
Number 6.
Number 6 is a weird one. This is kind of a dark horse. When I was at E3, I had an appointment with Team 17 to go see Ukulele. And while I was there, they had a couple other games set up in their booth that they were publishing. And one of them was this tiny game called Overcooked. And it was this very kind British man that was sitting there, just kind of letting people come up and play it as they did. And like, I had a few extra minutes, so I'm like, let's check this out, And Overcooked is so much fun. It was easily one of my favorite games from E3. Like, I sat and played it just with a grin on my face, and I'm like, I want to play more of this. I want to get all my friends together and play this because it's so silly and fun and madcap in a way that it's so good. Chef kiss.
Overcooked getting a lot of love this year, I'll say.
And I'm so happy it is because couch co-op is kind of a lost art in a weird way.
Hmm.
Because we are so online and plugged in, like you don't need to leave your house anymore. But the fun thing with Overcooked is like it's it's a new take on multiplayer, but it's not at the same time. Like it's just crazy enough that there's always this chaotic feel to it, and you never feel fully in control.
Hmm.
And I think that's what makes it so enticing to me. Because you sit there and you're kind of working through strategies with your friends as you go, and then all of a sudden something in the environment shifts and it just completely throws all your plans out the window. So you have to readjust, and I'm playing it and like people are yelling and they're screaming and like, pick it up, get over here, and it makes it a lot of fun. That's one of my favorite multiplayer experiences I've had this year, I think.
Yeah, I haven't gotten the chance to play any of it. It's a pity because we had like 16 people here at Extra Life, and I couldn't find a group to play with. But yeah, I want to maybe see if I can get like my roommates or something into that game. I only worry that it might be too stressful, but we'll see.
So the thing with that game is it actually is pretty accessible
Okay.
because all you're doing is moving and picking things up. That's basically it. Like you can actually, I took it home a couple months ago, and my brother and I sat and played it. I only have one PS4 controller, but you can use one PS4 controller for two people.
Yeah.
Like they have it configured that way.
Full on brothers, you know.
So
Okay.
like he had one half of the controller and I had the other half, and like it totally works. They also, it's a very small thing, but they also went out of their way to make options for like disabled people,
Hmm.
which like I'm not a disabled person, but like I think that's kind of cool
Yeah.
because it's something that you don't see a lot. And they also include like characters in wheelchairs and like characters of all different races and colors, and there's even like animal characters and stuff in there. So it's just kind of cool. It's a really small thing, but I think it's important to note.
Yeah. Accessibility features are getting more and more important. So
Hmm.
there's like a whole panel at PSX about it as well.
Which is great.
So yeah, it's a really cool thing.
Mhm.
And I appreciate that as well. Number 5.
Number 5 is, sorry, my phone just turned off here. Valhalla.
Okay.
Cyberpunk bartending action, I believe, is the subtitle to that.
Yeah. Another one that's popular on my podcast specifically.
Valhalla's weird because the game itself is kind of dull, but I love how it goes about setting up a world.
Hmm.
So often in like cyberpunk games, it's you exploring and carrying out jobs for really shady people from kind of the underbelly of the city or wherever you are, right?
Yeah.
And in Valhalla, you never leave your location. Like it always is in the bar, but you still learn about this world, and it's so well crafted and put together just from conversations. And I think it's kind of neat. It's very unique, and it's not something that's easy to do. Like that game is the ultimate. It's well, in a weird way, it kind of rebukes the idea of show don't tell, because it tells you without showing, but it does so in a way that I think is really powerful.
Okay.
Because you're interacting with all these different characters, and they're telling you about their lives, but not in like an overly expository way, and it feels very real and very organic.
Okay. I have this game, and it's ended up actually being Tony, one of the co-hosts of the show, his game of the year. It really resonated with him. So I'm curious to spend time with it. That is also the super chill game of the year.
It is another one of those, yeah. Maybe it was just, I mean, it was a stressful year. Maybe I just needed games that would calm me. But
Yeah.
it is definitely one of those, and it does feel like you're just sitting talking to people, and I enjoy doing that, and so I think that might be part of the reason why it stuck with me. But yeah, it's a cool thing.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said sitting and talking to people for hours would be out of my wheelhouse. So
I mean, I'm also like a mad introvert, but like I know how to make conversation with people, and I don't mind it when I'm in the mood for it. So
yeah, there you go. When you're in the mood for Valhalla, it'll come to you.
yeah, for sure.
I like that a lot. I'm everything I hear about that game makes it sound more and more interesting. So
I just really think it makes a strong case for what writing can be in a game.
okay, that's cool. Number 4.
Number 4 is Ratchet and Clank.
That's a video game.
That is a video game. I loved that game on PS2, like the original. I think I played. I think I played a few of them in the series actually, but I remember the first one the most because my brothers and I played it and like we loved it, and it was goofy, and it was kind of one of those like I've got three younger brothers, and when I was a teenager, like half of them were small children, but it was a game that we could all kind of share,
Yeah.
and I think that's part of why I liked it. But the new one, especially, is just a lot of fun. Like I love 3D platformers for that reason. Just they're usually goofy and kind of dumb and fun in a way that a lot of other games just have a hard time hitting. And Ratchet and Clank does that so well. It updates that formula without sacrificing its soul, and it's goofy and it's absolutely stunning. Like it looks incredible on PS4.
Yeah. Oof.
And I think it does a nice job of kind of pacing itself out, where every level you do basically the same thing, but there's different modes to go about it. So like some levels are you're flying in a ship, and some levels are kind of on rails type things, and some are just open world and your classic run around and shoot things. And it does a nice job balancing all of those. I think the weapons are kind of interesting and fun, and there's something so satisfying about picking up all the nuts and bolts, like when you destroy an enemy and they just kind of flock to you. It's so good.
Yeah. That's like such a really cool way to bring that kind of game back too, because it's like straight up just like a PS2 action platformer.
It really is, and it makes me happy to see that, especially because we have the Crash remastered collection coming out pretty soon too, and to see these things kind of come back makes me happy that we're not necessarily going to have the gray and brown gritty reboot motif forever.
Yeah.
It's refreshing.
Yeah, there can be color again, and it can be fun. I really like that game. It's also really surprising how many people who have never ever played Ratchet and Clank played this reboot.
It's a perfect entry point. It really is. And it actually ended up doing really well. I went down and visited Insomniac a few months ago, and they told us while we were down there it's the fastest selling Ratchet and Clank game they've ever made. So I would assume we'll see more.
Yeah, it's cool. I'd love to see like that new lineage carry on too.
Yes.
Number 3.
3. Yep.
Okay.
Doom.
Doom. That's a video game.
That is another video game. So I had no interest in Doom. I think like a lot of people, it just, it did not show well at the events where it was being displayed. Mostly like Bethesda's PR conferences and stuff. Or PR, whatever, press conferences. I can't.
Press event.
It's been a long week. Yeah, like it just didn't really. I think that is a game that has to be played to be understood. Like it's hard to just show that thing off. And especially after hearing that the multiplayer beta people were very iffy on, like I was just sort of like, maybe this just isn't for me. I don't know. But I ended up going over to my friend's house and she was playing it one night, and I'm just watching her play it, and I'm like, oh shit, this looks fun.
Yeah.
Especially because I really love the Wolfenstein games.
Okay.
This kind of reminded me of that in the sense that it was taking this old thing and it was making it new and fun and giving it a whole new life in our current generation. And I think Doom does that so nicely. Plus, it's just like, it's filled with so many like, oh, that was awesome type moments.
Yeah.
All the way from like the title screen where you cock your shotgun in time with the music to like the first time you learn how to do glory kills and you're just breezing through enemies, and the fights are just it's a different pace of shooter that you don't get as often now, like because there's no cover. Like you do not take cover in Doom. It is all just straight up get in there and crush it, and I love that for it.
Yeah, you're moving so constantly and so fast in that game. It's almost like
feels so good.
Yeah, you're just like having a little bit of a heart attack constantly playing that game, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, and I went into that loving it, not having any nostalgia for Doom. Like I bounced off of the original Doom, and I liked Doom 2 well enough, I guess. But like I didn't like really care for that series, and then I had no interest in it as well. And then after everyone said you should play this, playing it, it's a whole new thing.
I liked Doom. Like when Doom came out, I was probably like 9 or 10.
Mm.
Like so, not necessarily the best demographic for that. And I remember being kind of like off put by it too, like being like, "This is really bloody." My mom would be mad if she knew I was playing this. But it was still really cool, and I still really enjoyed it. Especially because at that time, like I really loved shooters and things, so it did something for me there. But like, it never was one of my like cornerstone games, I guess. So this was a really nice entry point too, kind of like Ratchet and Clank was.
Yeah. I agree. I hope also that they make more of these games, which
Oh, they will.
I'm sure they will, but man, to think that that is like that's going to happen. There's going to be more Doom games and they're going to be hopefully just as awesome is really
There's gonna
exciting.
be more Doom. There's gonna be more Wolfenstein. We have Quake coming out. Like they're just kind of going back, and I don't mind that. Granted, I want new things,
Yeah.
but well,
Hopefully we get both,
I have a few new things that are coming up here, so it's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. I can deal with that balance.
Yeah, I mean there's like a 15th Final Fantasy game out there, so
And it's
plenty-
it's not even really the 15th. It's like the 25th or something.
yeah, it's plenty of new things, sure. Number 2.
Number 2, Dishonored 2.
Yeah.
I love that game,
I love
and
that game too.
I'm kind of sad because it feels like it's kind of been not ignored, but just sort of like, oh, that was a thing.
Yeah.
That game is so good. I've only played as Emily. I haven't gone to Corvo's yet, so I don't know how he fits in necessarily.
Me too. I mean, like I've heard like the cool stuff about playing as Corvo is like he's going back to his homeland, so there's a lot of like internal reflection on because he was like raised on the streets of the that you go through and stuff
Oh,
like
and
that.
Karnaka.
Yeah, so
That's cool.
that actually makes me want to play it more. That's very interesting for sure.
If you put a woman in a game, I'm gonna play as her. That's just can't help it, man.
Yeah, I
They
feel you.
got me. They got me. They got my number there. And
She's real
Emily's
cool too.
she is really cool. Emily's moveset is really cool, and it's very different from Corvo's, which is surprising to me because I think that's tough. That's tough to do.
Yeah, she feels like a airier, lighter character, and like her movements at like the far reach and everything feels like an extension of that.
Yeah, the far reach is like a grappling hook, whereas Blink is kind of more of a teleport type thing, and it's cool. And I mean, I love the art direction in that game. I loved it in the first game, and I think it's just expanded on here. And the level design is a lot of fun,
Yeah,
and the AI is a lot of fun to mess with.
yeah,
Like there was like one part that made me laugh was like toward the very beginning when you're in the mansion and you end up getting locked away in a room after the Empress overthrows you. Spoilers, I guess, but it literally happens in like the first 10 minutes.
the first 10 minutes. So I feel like we're okay.
Yeah. And there was one part where I walked out and I choked out this guard, and then I picked up his body and I threw it onto the base level of the house, and like a bunch of other guards saw it and they like ran up and freaked out and got all crazy, and then I just sort of went around one by one systematically killing them, and it just felt so cool. It's like, oh, this is a good game.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just like moments like that I adore. Plus, Clockwork Mansion is an amazing level, and I think that's something that people will probably be studying for years to come because that thing is just bizarre. Like the way that it's set up, like this complex puzzle inside of a puzzle, and it's so good.
yeah. There are a lot of levels that like really stuck with me walking away from that game. Like it's really impressive. And I liked the first one well enough, but it definitely had room for an improvement. I think Dishonored 2 really knocks it out of the park. So
Dishonored 2 does it in a way that I think is really admirable because I actually, before Dishonored 2 came out, I went to a preview event for it, and I played like a little snippet of the Clockwork Mansion, and afterward I was just like, hot damn, I forgot how much I love Dishonored.
yeah,
And I went and I bought the Ultimate Edition or whatever, and I was playing through that, and it is still very, very good. But Dishonored 2 makes very subtle changes that I think make it a better game overall.
yeah. It's just noticeably better when you're like jumping back and forth from those experiences for sure.
Yeah, and that's hard to do. So, props to him.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see like what they do with Prey, and hopefully if they make another Dishonored, fingers crossed. Number 1. Best
This
game.
will surprise no. This will surprise nobody. But my favorite game of 2016 was Overwatch.
It is. It's a real good video game, to be fair.
Oh man, Overwatch is so fun. I love everything about Overwatch. I really do. Overwatch is a game that I shouldn't necessarily be into. Like I like shooters, but I don't love being a team player.
Okay.
For better or for worse.
Yeah.
And you know, in that game you have to be a team player or else you're not going to be successful. But I think what it does so nicely is that it entices you to try out so many different play styles, and there's literally a character for any play style on the planet. And every character is so different, every mechanic is so finely tuned, and they all interlock so nicely with each other. It's so fun. And I mean, I honestly like the fact that there's no single player to it doesn't really bother me because I kind of like the way that they've gone about their expanded universe in a way.
Yeah. Like
I
the
think
comics and
it's
everything.
yeah, I think it's different, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Because the worst thing in the world for that game would be if it had a really bad single player campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, if you went into that thing, especially now that we've had like Tumblr basically retcon everything. Like going in there and like, you know, seeing characters like in a way that you've never seen it before it wouldn't be as fun. And I think there is something to that where it's not necessarily a cut and dry, like, here's what this is. And instead it's sort of like, I don't know, what do you guys want it to be? And so they give you that flexibility by just giving you breadcrumbs. And people have kind of spun it into this thing where like I love a lot of the characters in that game. I love the designs of all the characters in that game as an art nerd. And I love how, again, just like optimistic that game seems.
Yeah, it's like a good vibes kind of video game.
Yeah, it's just fun, you know, like it's not, I mean, obviously like you're killing people, but it's not like when I get done playing a round of like Call of Duty, I'm usually like really tense, right? Because it's so fast and you have to be so quick and attentive on it. And, you know, you usually end up getting pissed, and like I get pissed in Overwatch too, but it's different because at the end of it, I'm still having fun. Like a tangible fun that I don't get from a lot of other multiplayer shooter games. So I love Overwatch. It's a game that I am still going back to, which honestly is why it beat out Doom and Dishonored 2. Mm-hmm. Like it's something that I still continue to go back to. Plus, I really like the fact that it's being supported as much as it is.
Yeah.
Like it's a different game now than it was when it released, and like that's just in a span of a few months. Like what's it going to be in 2 years, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you think about like how a game like Diablo 3 changed over the course of its life, like with like Loot 2.0 and all the expansions and characters and things they've added to that game. I'm really excited to see Overwatch get that same treatment because it's Blizzard and they don't know how to not do that. So
yeah, it's so good. I love Overwatch. That's easily my favorite game of 2016.
Yeah, it's cool, and it's a game I think we'll be talking about for years to come as well. So
I hope so. It has set a benchmark, and it'll be interesting to see how other games respond to that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's that Blizzard touch in a space they haven't been in before, but it's really approachable and really fun, like you said, and it's colorful and has different characters of different walks of life of like pretty much every variety. So.
And I super love, like I said, I love how goofy it is too. Like it's so dumb, and like there's parts of it that I'm just like, why is this a thing? But I still love it. Like the sprays, like why?
Yeah.
Or like in the beginning of a level when you're on attack and like you're just waiting for the counter to time down, and everybody's just running around destroying the environment where you're being held. Like it's just dumb, but it's so much fun. And it's so goofy and madcap. And there's like emergent parts of it too, right? And like I've been meaning to make a GIF of this, but my friend and I were playing the other night, and I can't remember the name of the level, but I walked out of the place of the spawn point, and right in front of me, a Reinhardt tackled a Roadhog and just went flying off the map. and like you could hear their characters like kind of just yelling as they went, and they both fell into the ocean. And like I just sat and watched the whole thing, and I was like, it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And I ended up like I immediately hit record on my PS4 afterward to get that clip. And it was just so dumb, but it's like moments like that I love, and I think they're so funny.
Yeah, I had a moment like that myself where like Reinhardt, I think it's Junkrat's explosion. He was charging and then it went off and he like kept charging but went over an entire building, came down, and then he hit like a diva, I think it was, and then they went flying off the level. Like completely, yep. Obviously this wasn't intentional, but it just happened. And it was beautiful.
It's one of those like unicorn moments, you know, that's just you only get this once, and it was so good.
Yeah. I have that clip saved on my PS4 as well. So yeah, that game is also like really well made video game with really great character abilities that lead to just insane shit happening constantly. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good list. I like it.
Thank you.
A lot of good indies on it too. Stuff
I try to get a good mix of both because I think there's a lot of really cool indie games, and I like to give those as much exposure as I can.
Yeah, I mean, like if people haven't heard of Valhalla, they should definitely check it out.
So, Valhalla is great. I mean, another honorable mention I should throw out there. See, I told you this would happen.
Fine.
Is Reigns, which is a mobile game. I think it's also on PC, but it works best on mobile. It's basically like it's Tinder the game, but it's not about dating. It's about running a country. And what's cool about it is like these characters just kind of pop up. It's almost like cards. And they'll pop up and they'll be like, my liege, like these people are revolting over in the Southlands or whatever. And so you can swipe right for a positive response or left for a negative response. And depending on what you do, it's going to fill up one of like 4 or 5 meters at the bottom of the screen, right? That's sort of like, hey, here's your money, here's your people's happiness, here's your health. And like you die very quickly and then you just immediately respawn as a new leader. And it's pretty cool. Like it has objectives and things to it, and it goes a little bit deeper than you would think it would. I do think that there are some issues with it. I think it is kind of limited in its scope, and that ultimately kind of hurts it, but it's fun. Yeah, and it's totally worth checking out.
Yeah, that's another one that crept up on some of these lists this year as well. So, cool. With 2016 done, finally. 2017, what are you looking forward to? Video games.
There's a few, and I'm probably forgetting some, and that makes me sad if I do. But
it's okay.
I've got a couple. First one is Prey. The original Prey I actually played. Like I kind of went on a kick for a little bit where I was like, I'm gonna play all the weird like offbeat shooters that nobody talks about. So games like Syndicate and Singularity and Vanquish, and Prey was one of them. And
Vanquish is amazing though.
Vanquish is so good. I feel like that's one of the less underrated ones, but it's still kind of underrated. I'm talking more of the games that weren't military games, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and Prey was one of those. And Prey was not good from a story perspective. It was pretty stupid, but it had some really cool shooting, and it had some really cool level design and ideas in that vein that I really liked. And I mean, obviously Bethesda's been kind of killing it with their revivals lately, so I'm really curious to see how that thing turns out. Yeah.
It is weird to see like a hard reboot after like one entry in a series, but it has been long enough, and like that whole Prey 2, everything that happened with Prey 2, I'm like curious to see if that has any effect on what Prey ends up being. So,
I mean, honestly, based on what we've seen from like South Park: Stick of Truth and The Last Guardian and Final Fantasy 15, like that's a good time for these sorts of games that are kind of seemingly disasters, but they release and end up being pretty all right. Yeah. Like, I'm not worried about it at all in that sense.
I'm definitely curious to get my hands. It kind of looks just like Sci-Fi Dishonored, honestly. So, I'm game.
Yeah, and a little bit of horror elements too, which I always kind of like. Not a game, but the Nintendo Switch, obviously.
I was gonna ask if you were gonna make the Switch, so.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what my money looks like, I definitely want to pick one of those up.
Hmm.
Maybe not launch day, but at some point this year, I want to get one. And I like Nintendo games. I like Nintendo consoles. Wii U is one of my favorites, and I love the idea of being able to play those in HD, like on the go. That sounds really cool.
Hmm.
I also am anxious to learn a little bit more about it because there's still a lot that we don't know about that thing.
Yeah, we
Um,
are only a few days away from the time of this recording, so.
it's true, yeah, where they kind of roll out a little bit more of it. Yeah, Nintendo Switch. I'm curious. I'm not a huge Zelda fan, but Breath of the Wild does look really good, so I'll probably end up checking that one out too.
All right,
Um,
I'm very excited for Breath of the Wild. Yeah,
yeah, I tend to be more into the isometric Zeldas. I don't know.
that's fair.
That's me.
Those are also real good. I mean, Link Between Worlds, real good. So,
Hmm.
anything else?
Yeah, I've got a couple.
Okay.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yes.
I mean, that's a game that somebody was just like, hey, let's make a game for Cassie Moser. Let's give it a pretty cool female protagonist that's got a really cool character design. Let's put robot dinos in it and make it open world with a bow. And it's just, it ticks all my boxes. I'm like, yep. That one's for me. Thank you.
It
I'll
looks
take that now.
really really pretty too. So
It does. It really does. So I'm excited for that one.
yeah, I hope that game's all right.
I think it will be. I've seen it in action a few times. I haven't actually played it. But I'm not worried about that one at all. Another one. This one's kind of a weird one, but like, my PC doesn't run games anymore because it's old and I need to upgrade. But Dreamfall Chapters is actually coming to PS4, and I really want to play that.
Okay.
Yeah, I've watched some Let's Plays of it on PC, and it looks pretty cool. And I like a good narrative adventure game, especially when it's kind of cyberpunk fantasy-ish.
Yeah.
And that's what this looks like. So I'm anxious to check that one out.
I'd like to see that on PS4 as well. I mean, I've heard a lot of good things about it. There's no way I could play it either. So
It's coming out on I think like March 24th
okay.
on PS4 and Xbox One. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna try that one out too.
All right. Anything else?
All right, 3 more.
Okay.
Yes.
I
First
appreciate
one.
you got a whole list. So
Oh, I had to, or else I'll forget them.
okay.
First one, ukulele.
Yes. I
Ukulele.
took ukulele into my soul, and it made me a better person.
Banjo-Kazooie is one of my all-time favorite games, and I just remember being a kid and sitting and playing that game for hours and hours and hours with my brother, and it's so good. And ukulele is just more of that, and I'm pretty okay with it.
Yeah.
And it looks really nice, and it has a really dorky sense of humor that I adore. And
Like a trouser snake. It's just like a snake that goes through two trouser pant
so
legs.
stupid. It's so stupid, but I love it.
So good.
So
Yeah.
I'm stupid excited for ukulele.
Yeah, I got to sit down at PSX. Me and my friend Barrett, he sat and played it, and I sat down on the floor next to him and watched him play it, and it was like going back to like
It's just
1998.
yeah, and like I'm not necessarily one that's taken in by nostalgia. Like I don't know, I tend to be kind of a cynic when it comes to stuff like that. But when you take this, it's sort of like Ratchet and Clank, where you take this and you put it in a new modern context and you add sensibilities to it that I know now. It just like you got me. Like that's I'm on the hook for that.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's genuinely really funny. So I'm excited for that as well.
Next one is Strafe.
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 I don't know if I've heard of Strafe.
Oh, Strafe is so good. I've played Strafe several times and I want that game so bad. Strafe is a roguelike shooter,
Okay.
which, okay, there's about 50 million of those on Steam. No. Strafe is so good because Strafe is extremely fast-paced, it is very well honed, and it is basically gross Splatoon. They have, like, overdone the gore mechanics in that game to the point where it is just ridiculous, and they're all kind of pixely in a Minecraft way.
Okay.
But the cool thing about it is, like, there's enemies that'll spray acid, and in order to get past that, you have to put blood on it so you can walk on it, and there's all these different enemy types, and levels just get harder and harder, and it's procedurally generated, and it's so good. It has a great soundtrack, it has a great sense of humor, and
This all sounds all right.
Strafe is so much fun. Strafe is the guys that made it. They're actually super cool. They wanted to make a '90s shooter, and that's exactly what Strafe is. Again, just kind of bringing in new modern sensibilities to it, and it is lovely. Like it is just so much fun to play, and
Awesome.
that's going to be out on PC and PS4 this year.
Okay.
Next one doesn't really count. Crash Remastered. It's Crash Bandicoot. I like Crash Bandicoot. I'm gonna
Do
play
you
that.
like the first Crash Bandicoot?
I do. I don't know if it's good, but I like it.
All right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is about as good an answer as I could get. So
Yep.
I do not
It's
like the first Crash Bandicoot, but I like the second and third ones. So
That's fair. This is like Shadows of the Empire for me. Like I will defend that game all day. I know it's not good, but I still really love it. Yeah, I mean I don't have much to say on that one. It's just more Crash, and I'm gonna buy it because I want new Crash, and that's gonna be the way you get it.
yeah.
Last one. I added one at the last second.
Okay.
I apologize.
It's okay.
Night in the Woods is an
Yeah,
indie game.
this one I've been hearing a lot of buzz about.
Night in the Woods looks really cool. I like how it looks. Like it looks very, very cartoonish and stylized, and it is like all with anthropomorphic animals. But it is kind of darkly cynical in a funny way. Like it's basically again like we're going back to like Millennials the game where it's
Mhm.
like it's about a character who just isn't sure where she's going or what she's doing or what her point is even in living. Like she just, she drops out of college and she goes back to her small town and like she's miserable and she's just trying to find her way through that. And she ends up doing like really stupid things. Like there's like a whole mini game for stealing things from basically their Hot Topic adjacent, and it's dumb, but it's like, oh yeah, I get that. Like you just want to feel something, and that sounds so depressing, but it does have its own personality that I think is really cool, and it also it's completely like it has dialogue, but it's nonverbal, right? So it's all just you just read all of it, and they still manage to make all the characters sound very different, that's hard to do. I mean, writing dialogue in general is just really hard to do, and they do a really great job with that. So yeah, Night in the Woods looks really cool. Like I said, I like indie games. I like kind of giving those exposure as much as I can, and that's definitely one of them.
Nice. Yeah, I that's like February, I think. Is what
It's very soon. Yeah,
yeah, or Q1 or whatever.
I don't
But
remember
yeah,
the exact date, but it's coming up.
yeah, I'm curious about that one. Any game with like good kind of dark writing has my attention at the very least.
Yeah,
Um,
especially when it's done well, because it's hard to do. So
yeah,
I'm
especially like
excited.
you said between characters, like dialogue.
hmm
That's a good list of upcoming games. One more time, just for people's reference, where can people find more of you on the internet?
I'm on Twitter way too much, complaining about things, mostly politics right now. But I swear I'm gonna start tweeting about games and comics again.
Fingers crossed.
That's God. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Cassidee Moser, and that's two S's and two E's.
Mm.
Yeah,
And you and another guest we had on these top tens, Katie Casardo, you guys have a Patreon.
we do have a Patreon. We do fan art every month, and it's pretty fun. This last one that we have coming up here from December, we're a few days late because of the holidays. We did Rey from Star Wars, and I'm actually super happy with how it turned out.
Yeah.
I do the lines, she does the colors, and she usually knocks it out of the park. So,
Yeah. So definitely check that out. I'm a big fan. So
oh, thank you, I appreciate that.
absolutely. Cassie, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. It's always a pleasure.
I appreciate the time. And if you like this top 10, then there's more where this came from. There are guest top 10s all of whatever week this is coming out, and also the Irrational Passions Game of the Year podcast, like broken out into 5 parts. And you can get that at youtube.com/Irrational Passions. You can watch all of them if you like to watch it, or you can go to the Irrational Passions RSS feed on iTunes or your favorite podcast provider. Check that out. We really appreciate all the guests that have been coming on, sharing their top 10 lists, and we appreciate you guys listening. But for now, that's all I've got. And thank you for listening. It's been my pleasure to serve you.